mountain to hear the old man play. And everything about him was steeped in the old-time way. The sound he made was stirring, it was magic, it was fun. When asked what it was called back when, he smiled and he said, son, they called it music in the church house in the fields. It was honest, it was simple, and it helped the hard times heal. It was music, they sang it deep down in the mines, in dark and lonesome prison cells, and behind battle lines. They called it music. Our fathers' fiddle tunes on Saturdays in town stayed in our heads and hearts all week till it came back around. I swear their voices are with me, I can feel them when I play. It wasn't all about money like it is today. They called it music in the church house in the fields. It was honest, it was simple, and it helped the hard times heal. It was music, they sang it deep down in the mines, in dark and lonesome prison cells, behind battle lines. They called it music. Didn't need to read a word to memorize a hymn. For way down in your soul you know a seed was sown within. There's a power in the old songs I hope will never fade. So love them like the children and don't let them get away. They called it music in the church house in the fields. It was honest, it was simple, and it helped the hard times heal. It was music, they sang it deep down in the mines, in dark and lonesome prison cells, behind battle lines. They called it music.
He talks? What does he talk about?
Jesus. Jesus!
Okay. You know? No? Yeah.
Tells people about Jesus.
Okay. Do you know Finn?
Preaches.
Preaches? Oliver?
He talks about a new church. He goes to people in the hospital.
Dory, what do you think?
He helps with the people in the church when they're struggling.
He goes visit sick people. He helps clean up downstairs. Stuff, just gives out calls, stuff like that.
Stuart, I would like to take this opportunity to personally thank you for your many years of service as a deacon to the Greenwood Mennonite Church. I always enjoy you doing the opening for the service. You always spoke so sincerely. Also, thank you, Dolores, for the support, for all you did to support Stuart, and happy retirement. Thank you. Thank you both.
And I didn't write anything down, Stuart, but again, I would like to say blessings on you and Dolores as you retire. I know God has a lot of new and interesting things in store for you. I would like to say that I have learned a lot from you in Sunday school. You really know your scriptures, and I really admire you for that, and I learn from you every week. And thank you for that, and I hope you'll continue to stay in Sunday school and continue to impart your wisdom. And again, the Lord, I will pray that the Lord will bless you and keep you in His care in your retirement years.
I feel it a great privilege to share a few thoughts about a person that I consider more than a friend. The book of Romans tells us that we ought to give honor to whom honor is due. I think the scripture also tells us that the Lord gives gifts to the church in the form of gifted individuals for the work of the ministry and sharing in the responsibilities of it. It's very evident that Stuart Mast, along with his wife Dolores, have served this church remarkably well. I first knew them through Dolores' parents, Elvin and Alma, who volunteered themselves to be adoptive grandparents for our young children. So we got to observe them, Stuart and Dolores, in their early marriage years, and we bonded with them at that time. Dolores, I do not believe, was ever appointed as a deaconess, but she really deserves recognition for the role that she has filled beside her husband. For many years, I have often thought about the communion bread that was baked by her hands. And it made me think yesterday someone at the bean packing and rice packing, whatever, said this could take place in a factory with more efficiency, but every one of these bags is touched with love. So our communion bread was touched with love, her love, many times. I'm not sure when Stuart was ordained deacon, but our Bishop John Mishler recognized his talent and abilities to fill a role of administrator. During my tenure as one of the pastoral team, it was liberating to have Stuart bring a fresh organizational structure to church and to our or sometimes tedious ministry meetings. They become more tolerable with the smell of coffee and maybe a light story that Stuart had either read or he had encountered that day or that week. That stoic-looking facade that he calls a beard, behind that resides a quick wit and a mischievous grin. When Ivan Miller, Stuart, and I were the ministry team, there were times when each of us had a different game plan, but we always knew that we were all on the same team. Stuart had a way of facing some difficult situations with a calmness of spirit and words of wisdom. If you would take the time to look around the history of his ministry in this church, you would find his fingerprints everywhere. But I like to think it this way. He influenced much, but he controlled nothing. They, Stuart and Dolores, not only ministered with us, they ministered to us. When they visited with Betty at hospice on the last day that she was with us, she had not been very coherent that morning, and I had left for part of the day. But when Stuart, Dolores, they came for a visit, she rallied, she connected with them. And when they prayed with her on planning to leave, she began to verbalize, and they realized that she was praying for them and for their ministry. And it was quite a moment for them. I guess eternity will reveal only what happened in that moment. Maybe she, on our behalf as a church, was sharing a benediction of sorts for what their friendship, their life, their ministry has meant to all of us. Their ministry has not ended by any means. It has only morphed into a new form. I just pray the Lord's blessing to continue to be upon their lives. You know, as they enjoy their family, as they continue to see some fruit of their labors, and as they continue to live out life to God's glory. We want His blessing to continue to be on their lives.
Stuart, just wanted to say we love you in the Lord, and I, as a new person who attends the church, I appreciate everything that you did and for me and all the times you opened up the service, and we all love you, and we thank you for being here, and may the Lord bless you and your wife.
Well, it's really hard to know where to even begin with Stuart, but first of all, I want to thank him for being such a pillar in our church. He has held us together for so long through all the hardships and what we have gone through. But also when I think of Stuart, I equate him to be a old MacDonald farm with all the animals, and I have always loved that. And also they're such a close-knit family, which I have always admired them. They do so much together as a family, and they involve their grandchildren. And I could just go on and on and on, but I'll let Skip say something.
Well, when I think of Stuart, I think of, this might sound a little funny, an old shoe. But Stuart fits, and he fits well into anything that he's been assigned to do or asked to do. And his attitude towards service is par excellence. I mean, he's there, he feels good, he does a good job, and I have always admired him for that.
I would like to say a few things about Dolores. You've walked alongside of Stuart all these years and have given of yourself in so many ways. And a lot of your service done for the church was done behind the scenes where people didn't notice. So I'm going to name a few of those. The first one that came to mind was what you do to help our communion service happen by baking the good homemade bread and helping fill the grape juice cups and always making sure that the towels are fresh and clean for the feet washing service. And you've willingly taken on the responsibility of heading up the Teen Challenge meal that our church does once a month. And you've also accepted the president position of the Community Sewing Day that is held at our church that meets once a month. And you and Stuart usually go along to the MCC Day in Ephrata that the sewing people take. And you and Stuart often visit the shut-ins or people in the hospital, as well as giving and helping community people in need. And most recently, we've been privileged to be a part of your small group. You opened your home to host a small group, and you made everyone feel welcome, and you took a special interest in each one in the group. So I've learned a lot from you by watching you minister to others in your selfless way with your calm spirit, and you never seem to let things ruffle you. I treasure your friendship and thank you for being a special blessing in my life.
Stuart, I've been privileged to work with you for quite a few years now. As I think back, it's been quite a few. The first I remember was being on the school board with you as you were the chairman, and then for a long stint on the leadership team at church, and more recently with small groups. And I said I was privileged to work with you because I've always looked at you as a very capable leader and appreciated the job you did on whenever I was with you. A couple things I'll mention that I especially appreciate about your leadership capabilities, and the first being I guess your ability to work with people. It didn't seem to matter if it was someone who was trying to get some help from our church, from the community, or whether it was handling a difficult issue at school or the church. You had the ability to make people feel comfortable and to help us see all sides of an issue as we were discussing it. And most often we could come to a consensus as a group rather than a vote that might have left us feeling divided. The second thing I've always enjoyed is your good sense of humor. And it didn't seem to matter what we were discussing, or there was just so many times when you could find a way to laugh about the situation, and it just made our meetings and being with you that much more enjoyable. And so I'm kind of sad to see you retire. I don't want you to feel like you're out to pasture now with nothing good to contribute. You still have many gifts that we can use. But I just wanted to say I've really appreciated working with you and for the many countless hours and years of service that you've given to our church.
Dolores, I have really enjoyed getting to know you, especially in these last couple years through our quilting and sewing together, sewing circle. And there's a saying that says, a good friend, like an old quilt, is both a treasure and a comfort. And I'm just want you to know that you are a treasure and a comfort to me.
Yeah, and Stuart, I've been trying to find the right words to express how much I appreciate your faithfulness. We were talking about it, Polly and I, trying to find the right words to really give not credibility, but weight, value to the fact that you have been a man of integrity and have made many of us feel very safe with these years of your administration here. And I have never, I can say this honestly, heard a word about you that embarrassed me. I've never seen activity. And I would say that you're one of those men that while you do have a pretty high standard for the people around you, you have just as high a standard for yourself when it comes to integrity, and be a man that a principle, and I want you to know that. I appreciate that. I think it has made a huge difference behind the scenes in ways that many people wouldn't even realize. And on a personal basis, I've appreciated, I know you and I don't do things exactly the same, and we have different styles about some things, but I've always felt an unusual amount of support, and I value your friendship incredibly and want you to know, yeah, I kind of wish you could stay on, but I also understand your decision at this time as well. We want to bless you in every way.
Definitely.
I appreciate Stuart, especially because when I would tell somebody where I go to church and who our leaders are, that we could always say we have a deacon that is a good deacon and does his job well. I like the way Stuart and Dolores work together, and especially how she would make our bread for the communion service. And the one thing that I really wonder about is how Stuart would look without a beard on his face.
I think you must have had awful big shoes to fill, because it takes two people to fill your shoes after you left. And I must say, Stuart, I've been impressed with the way you handled the church alms money. Just your attitude and the way you dealt with people, I thought was very special. I mean, you're just calm, and you didn't let them get you all worked up or anything, and I really appreciate that. And I just want to thank you again for all you have done for the church. You've done an awful lot of work. You took care of all the business, getting all the meetings together and the church mail and all that, and you've done a lot of work, and I appreciate it, and I hope you have a lot of fun with all the spare time that you have now.
Have you ever wondered who makes the homemade bread and who makes the home canned grape juice for communion, and who fills all those little cups? Who takes the wet towels home to wash and put them away? In her calm, willing way, Dolores does. She's a good helpmeet for Stuart. Thank you for all the many years of service for our church.
Stuart, Dolores, many thanks and much appreciation goes to both of you. A couple who has given a lot of your time and your gifts to the work of the church. For many, many years, you are loved dearly. Blessings.
I grew up in the home of a deacon, and so I know what that means. And it's just been really good for me to observe Stuart and Dolores and the way they have just filled these shoes so well. I know that you get, for the deacon, he gets calls all the time, middle of the night, daytime, he needs to go and take care of. And I think about Dolores when we have communion. She has these nice clean towels and the bread prepared and the juice, and I know that's something that she's willingly done. And I just I appreciate all the work they have put in, the confidentiality of things that go on that they know how to take care of. Oh yeah, and you know, they have a wonderful daughter that married my son, and we share wonderful grandchildren.
He's been a blessing. Long time. Thank you, Stuart, for being here.
Hi, Stuart and Dolores. I've just been thinking lots about you and knowing you're going to be retiring. And I couldn't help but think about last year when Randy had his injury, how well you and Dolores came over here and picked up sticks. You brought meals. Then I thought about all the many times I heard Stuart say he's taken somebody to the doctor or did something for someone. I feel like that you have filled your place very well, and I just ask that God bless you. And one of the biggest things I think about is that you have an open heart and an open home.
I'd like to share an example from, I think, 2 years ago when we were home for Christmas, of a couple things that happened during a day that I think kind of epitomize the care that my dad has for other people, the dedication that he put into his job as a deacon, and just his kind of overall mindset: if you're going to do a job, you're going to do it the best that you can. This day, I think we were supposed to have a family gathering that evening, and Dad was kind of, I think, looking forward to just kind of a day being at home, taking it easy. But at the same time, he had been dealing with this lady who had reached out to the church for housing assistance, and it kind of built to a head that day to where the point that he was on the phone on and off throughout the day trying to find where this lady could stay that evening, trying to line up different resources, having conversations about, what's the right thing to do. And it ultimately ended up that he had to drive up to Felton by himself and hand deliver some payment there to a hotel so that she had a place to stay that evening, because he thought that was important enough to make that effort. At the same time, during this day, we were supposed to have brunch the next day with some of my cousins who were coming over to our house, to my parents' house. And Dad, of course, was going to make coffee, but that day his beloved coffee grinder was not cooperating with him. So he spent, in between his phone calls trying to line up housing for this lady that day, he spent a lot of time trying to figure out what was wrong with his coffee grinder. He even went to the extent of going over to the church and bringing the church's coffee grinder back to our house, took it apart and was trying to compare parts and figured out what was wrong so that he could make his quality coffee the next morning. So to me, I kind of carried that day with me as kind of an example of just the passion that he has for his job, for that job as a deacon, and the care that he had for people. And as well as, if you're going to do something, even if it's grinding coffee, do it right and do it to the best that you can. Dad, thanks for the example that you set. We love you and wish we could be there for you today. And congrats on your retirement that I know you've been looking forward to. Thanks.
Hi, Mom and Dad. Wish that we could be there with you this evening to celebrate this milestone, but I just want to say again how much I appreciate you and how grateful I am for the consistent influence that you've been in my life, and for all that you've taught me about what it means to serve God and to serve other people. Recently, I was with a group of new believers coming out of a Hindu background and was sharing some of my history with them, and it just reminded me how blessed I am to have you as my parents, and for the way that you just over and over again in so many ways modeled what it means to follow Jesus. You took us to church all of the time, of course, but much more than that, you took a real interest in my spiritual development and what I was learning about God and experiencing. And you just over and over, in so many ways, consistently modeled what it means to follow God. And so I saw you live your Christian life in the church and outside of the church in exactly the same way. And there was never any difference or any hypocrisy or anything like that. You served other people, you loved other people in very practical ways, and I just saw that all my life growing up, and it really shaped my understanding of what it means to be a follower of Jesus. So thank you so much for that, and for the many other ways that you influenced me and blessed me. And I'm really grateful that now my kids get to see that same thing in your lives, and they really admire you and look up to you. We love you.
I like old Grandma and Grandpa's animals. The Sadducees, Todd, 60, Penny, Twyla, Fuzzball, Nutmeg, Cinnamon, Roxy.
Me? I love Grandma and Grandpa because they're always loving, kind, and compassionate.
I like it that Grandpa knows a lot about snakes and birds.
I like it that Grandpa always has the coffee pot ready and that I can drink some of it on Sundays.
Thank you for all you do at the church, and you're always eager to help those who need help.
Thank you for teaching me how to sew, Grandma.